This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, another wild statement from the President of the United States has prompted Canadians into discussing whether or not the future of the nation should be in the hands of the Conservatives, the Liberals, maybe a Liberal NDP coalition. Should those parties merge? Or maybe should we just join the United States? These are the types of subjects, nay, the distractions we've been covering this week as we've been talking to experts across the country. And today we're going to get into some polling from ResearchCo. Fascinating stuff on the future of the governing, for now, Liberals, the official opposition Conservatives, the NDP, and of course, the future of this nation. Mario Canseco in just a minute. Johnny, by the way, I was looking at our Real Talk live chat today, already fired up, powered by Park Power, and I saw Pin Chaser in there who's watching us live on YouTube, wishing everybody a very happy new year. It got me thinking pin chasing. It got me thinking about golf. It got me thinking about Real Talk's signature events, our Golf Classic, which will be coming up June 19th at the Ranch Golf and Country Club, and also our Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic, which is coming up on Saturday, February 1st. I want to thank Pin Chaser for putting that on my radar. He's got me thinking about golf right now, but I want to talk about pond hockey right out of the gates, right off the top of the episode, because we got a couple of emails yesterday from folks that were asking us, do you have any room left at the Golf Classic? Well, if you go to ryanjesperson.com, you click on the events link and go to pond hockey. That's where you'll find the link to register your team. You can have up to 6 skaters. Again, we're out in St. Albert on the 1st of February. That's a Saturday. It's going to be an amazing day in partnership with the Canadian Progress Club out of St. Albert in support of 3 wonderful charities. To date, this Pond Hockey Classic has raised $1.45 million, and this year promising to build on that total in a big way. It's burgers, bonfires, beers, and of course, the wonder that is the ODR. That's the outdoor rink. We have room for 5 more teams. Okay, 5 more teams. That'll sell us out at 24 teams. It's going to be a great cause. You're going to be there spinning. We've got some volunteers signed up already. I'm looking forward to that. And of course, it's going to be a perfect day. Again, that's ryanjesperson.com. Click on the events link if you want to be part of that Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic. We'd love to have you there in partnership with the Canadian Progress Club. I also want to let you know that this episode of Real Talk's happening with the support of Alberta's top online real estate school. That's Relo, online at relo.ca. If you're keen on kicking off a new career in 2025 and you want to start on the right foot, you're looking at a career in real estate, you're going to want to make sure you check out relo.ca. It's real estate learning online for the bold and ambitious. Wherever you're at in your career, they can help you find the next level, whether it's a commercial real estate career, a residential real estate career, whatever it is. They're the real estate school, the only real estate school that sets you up with a professional practice network and development webinars on weekends to make sure you're ready and set to go. Again, that's Relo at relo.ca. Mario Canseco is the president of ResearchCo. He's been conducting and analyzing public polling in the country for more than 20 years. Has always been a great friend to this show. And Mario, I know that we're going to be talking about some of your recent polling. You guys have been taking a look at the future of the Liberals, maybe a merger between the Liberals and the NDP. But about 10 days before New Year's Eve, you and your team were prognosticating about something that the American president ended up talking a whole lot about, and that was how Canadians would feel about joining the United States. Now, I think most Canadians are poo-pooing the idea. Some of us are getting really fired up about it, but you found that not every Canadian thinks it's a terrible idea. Talk to us about what you were polling on in December.
Well, the first time we asked about this question was in December of 2019. We have this package of questions related to national unity. So it's just 4 questions about your own place in the country, how you feel about your own province becoming independent, joining the United States, how you feel about your own premier, and how you feel about the country's prime minister. And back in December 2019, we had a significantly lower proportion of Canadians who were considering that it would be in their best interest for their own province to join the United States. But when we asked again last month, the number climbed to 26% across the country. And the one thing that is quite striking is that it reaches 40% with young Canadians. So people aged 18 to 34 are more likely to look at the idea of their own province joining the US as something that is positive. The numbers sort of drop off when you're looking into middle-aged Canadians and those over the age of 55. But this is an interesting conundrum because you do have young people who usually tended to be more center-left minded, who are now looking not only at the federal Conservatives as the party they would support, but also not looking down on the idea that we should work more with the United States.
What is it, do you think that young people find is intriguing, or what's the difference between the younger Canadians and us older ones?
I think part of it has to do with the way in which culture has been happening over the past 10, 20 years. We see it, for instance, in sports. A lot of people paying attention to the NFL, not so much to the CFL. You have a lot of young people who are exposed to music and to culture from the United States, and they haven't really developed this massive attachment to Canada. That is what we see with the middle-aged and older Canadians. So, it's a group that is looking into social media, looking into specific ways to do things. And it's also a group that is becoming increasingly desperate about the lack of solutions on issues such as the economy and jobs and also housing. So you're desperate, you feel in a sense that if the United States were in charge of this, maybe things would be better.
So this is like a cultural thing. Like, if you say, well, people are watching the NFL more than the CFL, it's like, this is culture. This is not consideration around politics. This is not conversation around, equitable representation or perception of that. It's not I think, sort of envy of the world economy or of military force. Is it people that are like fans of Taylor Swift and no shots at Taylor Swift, but is it more of like a cultural thing? People just want to be a bigger part of the biggest machine?
I think that is definitely part of it. When you're looking into the way in which the young people feel about this, because we've seen it grow. This isn't something that we thought about because Donald Trump spoke about it. We weren't chasing an ambulance trying to figure out what was happening with Donald Trump. Having that tracking data allows you to see how this has evolved. And it started off as something that wasn't really that important. We tend to see more people in Alberta thinking, yeah, maybe we should become the 51st state, but just us. We don't need to bring anybody else into the fold. And a lot of this is happening because of the way young people are reacting to things. And this really has a lot to do with the level of identification you have towards the country as a whole. And now we're at a very different stage, of course. We don't know who the next prime minister will be. There will be an election this year. So it's an opportunity for some of those younger Canadians to rekindle what makes them happy about Canada and maybe take them away from this notion that they can join the US. We know that the implications of such a merger would be massive, starting with the fact that there would be a lot of members of the House of Representatives who would lose their jobs because of the Constitution.
Yeah, no kidding. And we've had Real Talkers clap back. I remember yesterday in our live chat, Sharon made a comment about how Indigenous people would never let it happen. Somebody else made a comment about how the constitutional ramifications would make it nearly impossible. Politically, you take a look at the sitting prime minister for now. Justin Trudeau says there's not a snowball's chance in hell it'll happen. Pierre Poilievre, potentially and probably the next prime minister, says that Canada will never join the United States, period. Those were his words. And later in this episode, we'll play the full video of a former, an aged campaign ad from former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, who said the exact same thing. This is across party lines, Canadian federal political leaders saying there's not a chance that this ever happens. Are we wasting our time talking about it, Mario? Looking back, no offense, did you waste your time polling about it? Like, if it's never going to happen, what are we doing here?
Well, I really like the fact that we can go back and look into the way things change. It's not something that is reactive to what Donald Trump is saying, but I think what we have is a significant difference in the way we behaved in 2016 and 2017. We never heard Donald Trump say things like this. It's in 2019 when he starts to ponder whether they should buy Greenland. But this is also something that shows the complexities of Canadian political life at this particular stage. We never had this type of discussion from Donald Trump when Justin Trudeau was seen as somebody who had a mandate from Canadians. And now, the past couple of months, it's been more like, okay, there's a sense of weakness coming out of the leadership from our neighbor to the north. let's see how much we can exploit this, aided by discussions from people such as Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah, we've got some Les in our live chat powered by Park Power says, well, younger people typically rely on the healthcare system less than older people. Maybe that shapes their decision, which I think is an insightful comment. We've also got an interesting one from Denis, who wonders what's the financial status of those younger people, or generally speaking of the Canadians that would be more open to joining the United States. Did you happen to dig into that? Is it like with people with more wealth or more financial security that think it's a better idea?
It's actually the opposite. What we see is people who are struggling. If you're 18 to 34, if you're in the lowest income demographic, trying to make sense of what the housing market is going to look like for you, or trying to get ahead or trying to get a better job, you're more likely to think, well, maybe somebody else is going to be the solution to this. The healthcare comment is also quite striking, because we do see people over 55 more likely to express pride in the healthcare system. People who are younger may not need it that much. But what we're seeing more than anything is the middle-aged group really not necessarily flirting with the notion of joining the US, but more likely to be dissatisfied with healthcare because they're experiencing it differently. They have aging parents, they have young children. They're more likely to be critical of the way the system works, not necessarily looking at the American system as an advantage.
Interesting. In our live chat, Muddy Otters Pottery says young people have formed their opinions about the United States from television and social media. They probably don't realize most of them wouldn't have health coverage after age 26. Interesting comment. I want to take a look at another angle that same poll exhibited. If you're just tuning in, if you're just watching our live stream across 7 platforms, presented by California Closet. We're talking to Mario Canseco of Research Co. Look at this. So mid-December, Canadians polled, more than 1,000 of them with you, many of them saying that they thought that there needed to be somebody other than Justin Trudeau in charge. 2/3 of Albertans in our home province, 67%, 66% of Ontarians figured that their province would benefit from having somebody other than Justin Trudeau in charge of the federal government. But here's the curveball, Mario. Almost an equal number of Albertans, 64% of Albertans told you that their province would be better off with a different premier in charge. Almost identical numbers. 67 wanted Trudeau out, 64% want Danielle Smith out as premier. How do you reconcile the two?
It's not something that we haven't seen before. Part of what we saw, especially in the latter stages of the Jason Kenney tenure, was people who are growing dissatisfied with things. And part of that had to do with the reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic. You had a group of people who traditionally voted conservative and thought Jason Kenney is doing too much to deal with the pandemic. And then you had the group that never voted for the United Conservatives who said, he's not doing enough. Part of what we're seeing here is a situation where the base of support for the United Conservatives might not be particularly happy with the way things are going under Danielle Smith. And it's similar to what we see in a way with the federal government. Going back to some of our tracking of this same question during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a moment when most Canadians said, no, we would not be better off with a different prime minister. I think he's managing the COVID-19 pandemic well. Which made it even more ironic that the departure speech from Justin Trudeau came from the same venue where in April, May, or June of 2020, he was connecting with Canadians at a level that he hadn't been able to do since his election mandate back in 2015.
Mario, let's get into there's 2 other polls I really want to talk to you about. Your team is doing remarkable work. People can check it all out at researchco.ca. They can download your data tables. They can dig into it in depth. I love how you lay it out. Ultimately, I want to get to a potential merger between the Liberals and the NDP. I'm not sure it's a great idea. Quite frankly, I don't know why the NDP would want to do it. I don't know why the Liberals would want to do it either. But why don't we talk briefly about the bump that the Conservatives saw with Justin Trudeau's resignation. The morning of January 6th, our first show back in 2025, Justin Trudeau steps outside Rideau College and says I think what everybody was expecting him to say, and that is that if they head into an election, this party can't continue to operate with the distractions internally and externally. Of note, finding a way to pin it on somebody else. So kind of an interesting way to do it, did the Prime Minister. But what was the ultimate, like from a polling standpoint, what was the ripple effect that you and your team, your pollsters have seen since January 6th?
Well, it was an interesting situation because our goal was to focus on the relationship of Canada and the United States this week. And ultimately, what happened was we saw the numbers and we thought it was an important and compelling story to put out after Justin Trudeau stepped down, which is remarkable because you look at the way people felt the weekend prior to his resignation. And the numbers are significantly higher for the Conservatives everywhere. 51% in Ontario, 58% in Atlantic Canada, 54% in British Columbia. This is decided voters. So we're talking about massive, massive wins in places where Stephen Harper was never able to reach this type of support. You know, we got to go back to the 2000 election under Stockwell Day and the Canadian Alliance to find half of British Columbians voting for the same party. So, and again, you know, I think part of it is also the way in which the federal Conservatives are connecting in Quebec. You know, they're now in second place behind the Bloc. The Liberals are a distant third. Quebec is what saved Justin Trudeau from keeping minority mandates in 2019 and 2021. So when you're in third place in Quebec and majority support for the federal Conservatives in other places, it's time to take that walk in the snow.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, let's get into this question. I think this is an intriguing one because right now, I mean, you know, you look at, you know, when a long time or a long tenured leader, especially a prime minister, steps away, a party is looking at, unless there's an heir apparent, and in this case, I don't think there is. As a matter of fact, I think an heir apparent in this scenario would actually find themselves in a detrimental position, right? Being tied to or being associated with, perception or otherwise, an unpopular leader is a hamstring issue, right? It's not a benefit. So you're looking at basically kind of an overhaul of the identity of the Liberal Party. And I think that the party itself, members, the Brain Trust would probably acknowledge that there's a need to change course. They're going to have to do something different, if for no other reason than to be able to market themselves as doing something different. But there is talk, and thanks to you, there's some polling on what it might look like if the Liberals and the NDP, the federal parties, were to merge. Take us into this one.
We asked this question in October of 2023, and at the time, Canadians were very enthralled by the possibilities of the NDP and the Liberals working together. They were discussing the pharmacare deal, the dental care plan, and at the time, the level of support for a merge party, either under Jagmeet Singh or Justin Trudeau, was higher than it was last weekend. If we had a situation where the two parties decided to merge, they would still be lower, significantly lower than what the federal Conservatives would be getting. And to me, that is the essence of the argument. You know, it's no longer a situation where you can look at the NDP vote and the Liberal vote, put them together and say we would be 3 or 4 points ahead of the Conservatives. There's not really a dent in the level of Conservative support with this merge party. So you would still have a majority government led by Pierre Poilievre. And it's a delicate situation, particularly because of the lack of identification of younger voters with the center-left parties. We go back 10, 15 years, a lot of the support going to the NDP and the Liberals is coming from young people. And right now, young people and middle-aged people are saying, I think we would be better off with the federal Conservatives. It's similar to what we saw in BC in the last provincial election, where the over 55 voter tended to be more favorable towards the NDP. You know, it's a government that we've had for a while. We're going to give them another shot. And it was younger people who were flirting with the Conservatives. But the level that we're seeing this when it comes to federal politics is something that we've never seen before.
What's your sense, though, Mario, of like when you look at kind of the bedrock, let's say the pillars of political parties, and people could probably say like in their, and I guess the answer would differ for every single person, but like the Conservatives or those that are on the right typically prioritize this or are looking for this from government or think that government should play the following roles. Those on the left would sort of prioritize this or perceive the Liberals to be all about this or the NDP all about this. My answers for the federal Liberal Party and the federal NDP would be quite different. Maybe I'm asking for your personal opinion, or if you'd like, you can give us a sense of what those polled have told you. But I find the idea of a merger between those two parties to be quite curious. I'm not sure that they share all the top priorities. Do you?
No, I think there was a moment, I think, after the 2011 election when these discussions carried a lot more weight. You know, you had people like Jean Chrétien and Ed Broadbent discussing, well, maybe we should merge, we should create a a really democratic party and try to get somewhere out of this. But part of what happens whenever these discussions are entertained is the party that is doing better is not interested. The NDP at the time said, no, we're fine. We're going to coast through. We'll see where Jack Layton takes us and ultimately where Tom Mulcair takes us. It's difficult to try to figure this out, because what you have also is a lot of people thinking about maybe voting strategically, talk about this before the election happens, strike a deal where you could form the government, and then if you have more seats combined than the Conservatives, you can do something. And we don't see majority support for that either. So part of this is going to be, how do you rekindle with the public? And the Liberals in a way have 90 days to try to say to people, we can do things better. It's not easy to do. We just saw what happened with Kamala Harris in the United States.
Yeah, no kidding. And I feel like, listen, you of anybody knows that voting trends, voter intentions, polling can change. But when you're talking about like trying to turn around an ocean liner, like it's tough to do over a couple of months, especially if the party or the leader that's top in the polls doesn't screw up in a big way, right? Like if the leader on top of the polls doesn't take a DUI or get caught on video saying a horrific word or denies the Holocaust or does something ridiculous, aside from that, you may surrender 3, 6, 7 points, but to like surrender 25 points, it's just not going to happen, correct?
It will be very difficult. And I think part of what makes this compelling is the level of support, the favorability for Pierre Poilievre. His own approval rating was at 52% in August. We check again at the start of the year, it's still 52%. So it's not as if it's jumping significantly. You have a lot of people who are already there. And part of what happens with change elections is people start to believe in the idea of change, but there's no emotional connection with the leader. We've had provincial elections where people are saying, I hate the government, but the approval rating for the opposition leader is 35, 34%. It's lukewarm, it's ho-hum. During the campaign, you might come back to the fold and say, we're sticking with the government. When you're at 52%, that is significantly harder to do. And I think that is one of the main complexities for the Liberals. The other is, historically, they go from from a francophone leader to an anglophone leader, and it doesn't go well. 1964, Lester Pearson gets a minority government. 1984, John Turner loses to Brian Mulroney. 2004, Paul Martin barely gets a minority against Stephen Harper. And 2011, Michael Ignatieff couldn't even win his seat. So going from Franco to Anglo has never been great for the Liberals.
Have you been doing any polling? I mean, do you have something in process right now among stated card-carrying Liberal Party supporters? It's probably too early because you don't have a field of declared candidates for the leadership race, right? Is that something, though, that you'll be looking at over the next couple of weeks?
It's something that we want to look into. I mean, this person is going to become prime minister, even for a day. So it's important to try to figure out where they would go. But a lot of this has to do with the rules that the party decides to have. And it's always been complex. We hear people saying sometimes we should be more like Australia and let the caucus decide. I don't think that's necessarily the best idea. But we need to figure out how the process will go. Will the votes be weighted? And it's a lot easier to do this for the Conservatives because the rules are significantly clearer than what we have right now for the Liberals.
Yeah, I saw a number of people saying that even the prime minister didn't want the caucus to decide who the next prime minister was going to be, to pick the leader. They thought that party members should. I mean, you could probably argue against either. It'd be interesting to see, though, who the caucus would choose, like who would win that popularity contest within the party right now. What does your gut tell you?
Well, I think part of what we're seeing is a lot of positioning from people who maybe want to do something afterwards. And this is something that always happens in leadership races. You have a couple of very serious contenders, and then you have 3 or 4 people who want to raise their own profile, maybe get something better down the road. I think, Chrystia Freeland is somebody who's very well known because of everything that's happened during the last few weeks. You have to capitalize on that favorability, but I don't think it's a done deal until we realize how this is going to unfold and what type of weights are going to be put to to the votes in the region and just who can participate. This is something that we also don't even know about. You might have a national conversation where you entice people to sign up for the Liberal Party, and then it becomes a question of who sells the most memberships.
Yeah, great point. Mario, before we thank you for your time, I want to circle back on something. I pointed out, not necessarily a discrepancy, but it's just an interesting polling result that Albertans, just a short time ago, about 2/3 of them wanted to see a different prime minister, but about 2/3 also wanted to see a different premier. And Seventh Pilot in our live chat, powered by Park Power, says, well, hang on a second. What about what happened in Red Deer? And Seventh Pilot is referencing, of course, the UCP AGM. So obviously we're talking about UCP party members and probably the hardest core party members, the ones that either live in Red Deer or traveled to Red Deer, that paid the money to be there, that went there to, participate in one of the biggest political conventions in Canadian history. But still, it was a UCP convention. But Seventh Pilot says, well, Smith got a 91.5% result out of that UCP AGM. So what's up with this 2/3? And maybe you could give us a little bit of insight into your polling, how it actually happens, who you talk to. Can you get into the brass tacks of it all?
Of course. The idea is to have a representative sample of the country. So you got to make sure that you have the correct number of people according to the census in Ontario, in Quebec, in Alberta. Make sure that your age and gender distribution is also something that looks like what the country looks like. And I think what we see more than anything in Alberta is a sense of dissatisfaction from young people who believe that the solutions would be quicker. And you hear a lot about housing. Housing really started as an issue that was more concerning to Metro Vancouverites, but now we're seeing pockets of Alberta, pockets of Atlantic Canada worried about this. So a lot of what we have is the middle-aged and younger demographic saying, well, maybe we would be better off if somebody else were calling the shots because the solutions aren't coming as quickly as I want them to.
All right, great stuff. Mario Canseco is president at Research Co., and you can check out the work that they do by visiting researchco.ca, including their recent feature, Conservatives Rise in Canada, on the eve of Trudeau's resignation. Give Mario a follow as well on X. Always appreciate your availability, your insights, and a Happy New Year to you and your team, Mario.
Thank you, Ryan. Happy New Year to you, too.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. Let us know what you think in the live chat. We'll get to that in just a bit. Powered by Park Power, of course. And you can also, oh, man, I'm seeing some of the comments in here. Jeez. When you take 2 seconds away from the live chat, then you jump back into it, you get walloped in the face with the comments. Sometimes it's kind of entertaining. But you can also send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com, including for the flamethrower, which will be coming up on our next episode of the show. That'll be January 10th, powered and presented by our good friends at the DQs, the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, the locally owned Dairy Queens. John, we can go into uncomfortable areas on this show as independents. I saw some people showing have you seen this Dairy Queen, this DQ? This is not one of the ones that we partner with, but the one in Abbotsford that's been offering, they had the Justin Trudeau resignation special.
No,
it was like certain pricing on burgers, and then now they have the Pierre Poilievre for PM burger special.
Oh, gosh.
And I wanted to acknowledge this on the show because we're independents. We don't have to sweat this kind of stuff. This makes big media, mainstream media executives very nervous when you start talking like this. But I've seen people start to tag our show and tag our DQs in this and the photos of this. I just want to remind you, one of the reasons why we're so proud of our partnerships with these DQs is these are family-owned, locally owned DQs in Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. And when you swing there to pick up a flamethrower, make sure you let them know that Real Talk sent you. So yeah, interesting stuff. But always tag us in your tweets. We love hearing from you. I want to get to some of your comments. We're going to get up to speed on some of the fallout from Donald Trump's comments as well. Plus, we got a card in the mail, like a physical card in the mail into our actual literal mailbox just the other day. And we want to read this today because it kind of knocked our socks off when we opened it. John and I read it together just the other day, and it really meant a lot to us. But, we talk a lot about our partnership with the team at North Road Investment Council, and they've got an opportunity coming up. Now, I understand this is not going to be relevant or applicable to everybody, but if you are in Puerto Vallarta next week, I have a feeling, I have confidence this is going to land with the one or two people it needs to land with. Or if you know somebody that's down in Puerto Vallarta next week, the team at North Road Investment Council is hosting clients and prospective clients in Puerto Vallarta coming up on Monday. That's going to be the 13th of January. if you're down there, they're going to be partnering with Trowbridge International Tax Advisors. They're going to be telling you about how to manage the 6 big money risks in retirement, right? Safely investing your spending in Canadian dollars and your pesos for a better retirement. They're going to help you better understand digital risks in 2025, basically steps to living a safer digital life in Canada and Mexico. Everybody's doing their banking online right now. A lot of people are doing all their correspondence online right now. Are you doing it safely? They're also going to be helping you get up to speed on navigating international tax issues for Canadian nationals and expats in Mexico. It's going to be held at the beautiful Marriott in the Marina District of Puerto Vallarta. It's free to attend with advanced registration. They're going to be hosting a lunch as well. They'll look after you. They're also going to be hosting a second event if you'll be down in Puerto Vallarta on February 24th. We'll give you a heads up on that. These are the Mexico events proudly presented by our friends at North Road Investment Council. You can learn more on their website or get in touch with them there at northroadic.com. We talk a lot about Park Power, and of course, they're driving that Real Talk live chat that's bringing so many of you, giving you an opportunity to have your say on the issues that matter most to you. Park Power offers electricity, natural gas, and internet across the province of Alberta with low rates, awesome service, and they share their profits with Alberta charities. Nobody else is doing that. It's amazing. Park Power is currently offering the lowest fixed electricity rates in Alberta. That's 6.69 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the lowest fixed rate in the entire province. With winter here upon us, it's a great time to shop for lower rates. You can find them on all social channels at Park Power Ltd, or you can find them online at parkpower.ca. If you don't yet have plans for January 25th, I want you to make them right now. And if you do, and they don't involve the Chamber Ball, well, it's time to change your plans. I'm going to be joining Edmonton's Chamber CEO, Doug Griffiths, for the Party of the Year. This is the hottest night in Edmonton's business scene. It's Chamber Ball 2025. We're talking top-tier connections, phenomenal food, and an electric energy that will remind you why Edmonton is the absolute best place to do business. It's the biggest business party of the year as we bring together the city's movers and shakers for a night of big ideas and even bigger celebrations. This is going to be a room full of people who are keeping our city on the map, and it's going to be a great time. It is every single year. We'll be cheering along 6 of the incredible Edifier Award winners. They're featured in our good friend Edify in that magazine, welcoming the incoming board chair and, of course, a 5-course meal that'll knock your socks off. You can get your golden tickets online at edmontonchamber.com. It's Chamber Ball 2025 coming up on January 25th. And a shout out to our friends in the Friesen Brothers family, 17 different locations across the province as they celebrate their 70th anniversary this year. Amazing, still family owned. But we wanted to give a special shout out, John, to our friends at the Friesen Brothers in Peace River. Check this out. Their support. This is thanks to the team members at Friesen Brothers and you, the customers that are at the Friesen Brothers out in Peace River. Look at this donation. Absolutely unbelievable stuff to the food bank, the Salvation Army Food Bank. $40,000 and change. How about that? This is community at its finest, my friends. So a special shout out to the team at the Friesen Brothers in Peace River and all of the customers that made a donation at the till to help make that happen. 40 G's. You can learn more about their all-you-can-eat Ukrainian feasts at select Friesen Brothers by checking out their website at friesen.com. I saw you make a note on the live chat, which was a good one. We had kind of an exciting development with the Real Talk for the podcast audience that downloads Real Talk, that downloads the show on Spotify. A big change for 2025.
Yeah, well, we doubled our listener base on there. So a gift from Real Talk to you guys. Thank you so much for giving us all that extra support in 2024. So now in 2025, moving forward, started just yesterday, and we're going to backtrack to the episodes from Monday and Tuesday. You now have HD video. So just like all the other podcasts you see now that have video through Spotify for creators on Spotify, it doesn't change anything. You still click on the same episode. You'll get the audio if you're listening in the car, but as well, turn off your landscape hold mode and turn your phone sideways, and you've got HD video right on your phone, tablet, or of course on the web player if you're on a PC or a home computer. I will say just be careful when driving though, because it does. I tested it on the way home in my car, and I'm like, it can be a little distracting if you're looking at your phone, because now when we're talking about images and stuff, you might glare down. So just safe when driving, guys. But thank you to everyone on Spotify. A little gift from us to you moving forward this year.
Yeah, we were pretty pleasantly surprised as we were putting together our year in review to see that in particular the Spotify audience was up 55% year over year, which is absolutely amazing. It just barely eclipsed the growth on the YouTube channel, which is awesome to have the different platforms all experiencing growth, and so we're really grateful for that, Real Talkers. But again, I think that video on the pod is a whole new level up, and I'm really excited about it.
A notch. And then I see right now, Noob Try Again says, I want to see Ryan in 4K. Well, unfortunately, you cannot stream in 4K on YouTube, which is, pretty much, I mean, we're sending 4K video, but it does not go up that way to YouTube. So we don't want to give everyone else 4K and then have one place. So we're just going to keep it all. HD is still, 1080.
Yes.
So until YouTube ups there,
Well, and I just need to say too, like if we start doing this in 4K, like I'm going to have to adjust my skincare routine. There are all kinds of implications that I'm not sure I'm ready for. So I don't know if we want to go there.
And on your phone, it already looks, I was watching last night, like I said, as I was driving, I'm looking down, I'm like, this is so, on your phone when it's smaller, when you're not watching on a TV. I love people text me all the time. They're like, I just turn on my TV and go to my YouTube and watch you guys. That's amazing because it looks incredible everywhere. But yeah, when YouTube makes a jump, because now you're getting things in 8, 10K, stuff like that on YouTube. So when it goes to 4K, it'll be a great leap. But for now, everything's 1080.
Yep. Real Talk Live Chat, powered by Park Power. Friendly local utilities provider Randy says, I sure hope that report on foreign interference still comes out on January 31st and names the 12 Liberal MPs who have sold out Canada to China. Randy, I mean, I think everybody's waiting to see that foreign interference report. And keep in mind, it's not just Liberal MPs. There's MPs across the board. And I think that every Canadian, I understand when I see people banging on the table saying we want names, I understand exactly why. If that's your member of parliament, you want to know exactly why. And I would imagine that there's a few people that are experiencing night sweats right now. If you're one of those that was collaborating. How about this interview that it's not so much what Doug Ford said, the Premier of Ontario, but I was going to go here with Jesse Waters, Fox News host, Jesse Waters. We're just going to play you like 20 seconds of it because I don't want to give you all like a brain aneurysm. But check this out. So if you're not familiar, Jesse Waters, big Trump guy, he's on Fox and he's talking he's been talking about sort of America taking Canada. And he's not even, at least with Trump, and I can't believe I'm even offering these caveats, like Trump saying, I've ruled out, he says we won't use military force to come take Canada. Okay. But he says, no, we're going to use economic force. Well, Waters just thinks basically like Canadians should be lining up and sort of like handing over our passports. And anyway, the guy thinks that Americans are doing us some sort of an honor, some sort of a favor in talking about taking over Canada. And here's what he said on Fox yesterday. Check this out.
I get it. You say that Americans don't have a problem with Canadians, and we don't. But it seems like you have a problem with us. Because if I were a citizen of another country and I was a neighbor of the United States, I would consider it a privilege to be taken over by the United States of America. That's what everybody else in the world wants, American citizenship. For some reason, that's repellent to you Canadians. And I find that personally offensive, Premier.
Okay, so he finds it. Now, he does crack a bit of a smile at the end, so maybe he's not expecting this to be taken totally seriously, and maybe what he's doing is working because we're talking about it today, but he is personally offended that Canadians don't want American citizenship.
I'm personally offended that he is personally offended, and I love weighing in on this because I'm a dually. I was born in the States, and, I think it's offensive for another country, even if it is the United States. And granted, it is probably the place where I would say Canada is a second, where most people want to go and gain citizenship. I feel very, very grateful that at any time I could go down there and work and live and prosper. And that just in the back of my mind feels like a leg up. At the same time, I think there's a lot of Canadians who would never want to go down to the States and live and work. It's nice to go to Disneyland or whatever down there and visit and go to Vegas and see shows. But to imply that every Canadian would jump at the chance at American citizenship, it's just false.
Yeah, people were wondering, well, what did Doug Ford have to say about that? Number one, he had this kind of.
It wasn't the greatest answer, which is why we're not playing it. But go ahead and go.
Yeah, he offered to buy Alaska. He said you could throw Minnesota in as well, which I thought that was kind of funny.
We should have Alaska, actually, shouldn't we?
Well, of course we should have Alaska.
You look at the map; it's like that should be.
Yeah, it doesn't. Alaska just kind of fits the vibe of Canada much more than the U.S. anyway.
It's how they keep an eye on Russia, right? They always have.
Yeah. So anyway, Ford offers to buy Alaska, says that they should throw in Minnesota as well. This, like we mentioned earlier, this sort of talk from Trump and Fox News hosts like Jesse Waters is drawing responses from politicians across party lines, and of course we'll talk about Stephen Harper in a second. Pierre Poilievre says hell no. Justin Trudeau says hell no. What about this? Jim McGovern is from the House of Representatives. He's a congressman out of Massachusetts, a Democrat. He says Trump's Greenland, Canada, and Panama talk a distraction, so everybody forgets what he promised, right? Trump said he would end the war in Ukraine before he even becomes president. He promised cheaper groceries, $2 a gallon gas, and no more taxes on overtime. Says McGovern, don't let him move the goalposts. And what about this from the leader of Canada's most right political party, right? Or at least of the reasonable ones that you've heard of, the People's Party of Canada. What about, you saw this tweet from Maxime Bernier yesterday, former cabinet minister, as you know, under Stephen Harper. Maxime Bernier tweets at length. I won't read the entire thing. He says, one thing I've always despised about the U.S., that's a loaded word to use, I've despised about the USA is their militaristic and imperialist attitude of their neoconservative establishment present in both parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. Says for decades, they've invaded, engineered coups, bombed, and killed thousands of innocents in countries that posed no threat to them under the pretext of protecting the free world. Bernier says they still have 750 military bases in 80 countries to control their empire. He says, one of the reasons I supported the election of Donald Trump was that he's been opposed to these pointless and costly foreign wars, has promised to quickly end the U.S. proxy war with Russia in Ukraine. While the Democrats and Obama, Biden as well, have clearly become the war party, says Maxime Bernier, the Republicans under Trump, to their credit, have behaved like the peace party. And he says, and it's clearly in the Americans' interest to do so, since they've ultimately been humiliated in most of their foreign interventions from Vietnam to Afghanistan. He's not wrong. He says things are going badly in Ukraine. Sanctions against Russia have backfired. He goes on and on and on. He says it's also in the Americans' interest to adapt to a new geopolitical situation and help it evolve peacefully. Rather than deluding themselves, they will always be the top dog. The government is close to bankruptcy, with a national debt spinning out of control. The status of the dollar as the world's reserve currency, which allowed them to print trillions of dollars, export inflation, and make the rest of the world pay for their empire, is now threatened as emerging countries are rapidly de-dollarizing. This is Jespo's words now. I'm thinking of Bitcoin. Back to Maxime Bernier. He says all of this to say it's extremely disappointing and concerning to see Mr. Trump acting like a typical arrogant American imperialist with his increasingly aggressive and outrageous statements about annexing Canada and Greenland and the Panama Canal, again under the pretext of protecting the free world. This is the one that caught my attention. Bernier says, for 2 centuries, we've been the closest friends, neighbors, trading partners, and allies. Does he really want to throw all of this overboard in a grandiose quest to make America's dick bigger? That from Maxime Bernier, who says obviously Canada is in no position to win any war with the U.S., military or economic. Can you believe we're even having a talk like this? Can you believe we're even talking about the fact we wouldn't win a war against the... What are we even talking about anymore? But I get why he's saying it. He says we can retaliate and hurt the Americans, but we won't be able to sustain an economic war for long, given our economy's complete dependence on theirs. This is what Martha Harrison talked about with us yesterday, international trade lawyer. One of the best guests we've had, I think, in months. She was incredible. If you missed our episode on the 8th of January, make sure you check it out. Bernier wraps by saying if Trump really is serious about annexing Canada, We're entering an entirely different game in trying to deal with a dangerous bully, and there won't be any easy solution. That from the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier.
Yeah, USA really does have some BDE, some big dick energy, don't they?
I don't know if that, I guess it sort of seems, it's kind of the opposite though. I feel like BDE is kind of when you don't have to walk around and sort of step on the toes of all those that got you to where you are.
Well, maybe.
You
I
step
think
on
it's
all
just
your,
you walk in the room and you kind of have that, that swagger.
The swagger. The swagger.
That air about you.
I guess.
Miss KD, just off topic, but asking why we still have some of our holiday decorations up. It's just we're taking them down at the end of the week. So
I don't
worry
think we
about
need to. Yeah, I think that's not top of list of concern for anybody right now. Jim McGovern, interesting comment there, and then there was this from Stephen Harper just yesterday as well, former Prime Minister of Canada.
Video.
I just want to kind of reiterate this. Harper not saying anything new. As a matter of fact, he re-releases a campaign ad. This was a campaign ad from 10 years ago where Stephen Harper, again, still leader of the Conservatives, at this time Prime Minister of Canada, wanted to keep that job. And he was talking about his position, how he feels about the country of which he was the Prime Minister at the time. And I think it holds true. I liked that he put this out in the context of what Donald Trump's talking about right now.
Canada is and always has been our country. And we want Canada to be a true north that is as strong and as free as it can be in every way that matters. The best country in the world. That's why we're here. That's why we strive. That's why we serve. Canada must reflect the true character of the Canadian people. Honorable in our dealings, faithful to our commitments, loyal to our friends. By turns, a courageous warrior and a compassionate neighbor. It is our purpose that Canada must be great. It must be great for all Canadians. It must be a country of hope and an example to the world. And only when it is these things, when Canada is all that it can be, only then can we say that our work is done.
It's not a Stephen Harper campaign ad from back in the day,
What year?
But I like that would have been coming into the 2015 election.
Okay.
And ultimately the election, obviously, that Justin Trudeau kind of came up the middle. You remember that? That was a Stephen Harper, Thomas Mulcair election, at least in the early narrative. And then the third place Liberals came up, and as you know, Justin Trudeau ended up winning that election. But I liked that, regardless of how you feel about Stephen Harper, I know a couple of people yesterday, I retweeted that, and a couple of people were like, the Stephen Harper. I thought, I asked them back, what do you disagree with about what he said there? Which part do you disagree with? I actually kind of like things that bring people together. Not everything, including this show, not everything I don't think needs to be a stick that goes in between people and divides them. And I like that this narrative, and unfortunately, we know that our relationship with the United States is strong and has stood many tests and over the decades. And we can almost get to the point where we say over the centuries. And one president or one prime minister will not end that relationship, but relationships can become strained. Relationships can become tested. And I think that this relationship will be tested over the next 4 years. And that's why the next Prime Minister of Canada, maybe minus the next Prime Minister of Canada that'll be the leader of the Liberal Party, because they'll be there for a brief minute, I think. But the next Prime Minister of Canada with a mandate for a number of years is going to have their work cut out for them in a big way. And that's why all of this matters. We want to get to this note from a Real Talker, which was really incredible and made a big impact on John and I. But before we do, I want to put a couple of things on your radar, friends. We've been talking to you about UCAN Youth Services. We have agreed to a partnership with them that we're really proud of and excited about. We want to put our efforts with groups and nonprofits that we truly believe in, and UCAN Youth Services is one of those. They're doing amazing work for at-risk young adults, like age 18 to 25, that really could use an opportunity to tap into educational or employment resources. And so they've got a number of different projects. They've got their Relentless Outreach Workers, their Verto project, which is a really neat opportunity for intensive training in technology and job readiness. They've got a Road to Work program, which offers a pre-employment program for young people, guiding them back into school or the workforce. There's a ton of this going on, but how do they fund it all? Well, in part, with donations, and in part, they're comedy nights. And the month of March is a big one for UCAN Youth Services Comedy Nights from the 10th to the 12th of March, then the 17th to the 19th. We're going to be out there at one of them. I'm grabbing a table and bringing a whole bunch of people. It's going to be a ton of fun. You can learn more at ucancomedy.com. Why not reserve a table yourself, bring some friends and family out, have a few laughs, have more than a few laughs, and support a wonderful cause. That's the 10th to the 12th of March, the 17th to the 19th of March. Maybe make it a group date night. How fun would that be at ucancomedy.com. For those of you that are absolutely intent on getting up for a new reason every single morning this year, you're sick and tired of the job you're at, you could use a new opportunity. Kubi Renewable Energy is hiring in Lethbridge, Kamloops, Calgary, and Edmonton. You can check out the careers link on their website. That's kubienergy.ca. This is Canada's fastest growing solar installer. They're doing more solar panels installed in Western Canada than literally anybody else. It's because they're doing them on office towers, houses, they're doing them on warehouses, they're doing them on farms, you name it, Kubi does it, and they're looking for installers, salespeople, office managers, and more. Again, the careers link at kubienergy.ca. If you're looking for a new start with Canada's green energy, this is the fastest growing company in the business. A great start today at kubienergy.ca. Also wanted to give a shout out to our friends at California Closets. If you made a New Year's resolution to get organized this year and you're keen on finally taking that step, why not take step number 1 today and book a free design consultation with the team at California Closets. Whether it's your bedroom, a workspace, living area, storage room, your garage, you name it, California Closets does it better than anybody else, and it's guaranteed for life. Our family personally worked with their designers, their installers, which is why I'm so enthusiastic when I talk about it. Ours was 9 years ago. The install still looks like it's 10 days old. Absolutely beautiful, and it was a game changer for us. You can book that free consultation today, nothing to lose, by visiting californiaclosets.ca. Interesting debate in the live chat right now over under which prime minister your life improved more, Stephen Harper or Justin Trudeau. It's an interesting conversation to have with people. They had nearly identical tenures, both of them about 9 years, approximately-ish, let's call it 10 years. Each of them had about 10 years as prime minister. You can always let us know if something that we're saying is resonating with you. You put a little thought into an email. You can send that to us at talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's where we get our positive reflections for our first episodes of the week. It's where we get our flamethrowers for our final episodes of every week. And then, of course, the emails that we look to get to through the week as well, where you're telling us what you think. I think we can make an announcement right now, by the way. The first episode of next week, that'll be the 13th of January. I haven't even told you this yet.
Oh.
It's not going to be every Monday, but next Monday, the 13th of January, we will welcome back Senator Charles Adler.
Oh, wow.
He's got clearance from the ethics commissioner.
Pleaser.
And we're looking forward to it. Now, my guess is that Adler's going to have to approach this interview maybe a little bit differently than he has interviews in past now that he's a senator. Like when he starts talking about Donald Trump, it's different when it's like longtime talk radio host says this about Donald Trump or senator says this about Donald Trump. So we'll see how he approaches it. But
I'm excited about two things. Well, one thing I'm not excited about is he's probably going to lose the Real Talk snapback.
I wonder.
He's going to have that fresh cut. He's going to have the suit on, the tie. Maybe he'll be in an office.
I didn't even think
about that. You know
about
what I mean?
that.
Instead of at his home. And but hey, I'm looking forward to seeing him.
Maybe he'll have somebody else running his camera. Now that he's a senator,
well,
he's got staffers.
He'll have someone come in and say, "Charles will be with you in just a moment. He's getting ready."
Senator Adler will be with you in just a moment. So that's the 13th of January. If you have a question you'd love to ask Chuck, obviously we'll talk to him about the news of the day and all the headlines and all the regular stuff. But also, I just think it'll be interesting to get a bit of a behind-the-scenes look on how he's adjusted to it all. Like, he keeps referring to himself in our correspondence as the Senate rookie. He's still just kind of finding his footing. This is obviously his first time doing anything even remotely like this. Like a 50-year career in broadcasting now as a Canadian senator. So should be an interesting interview. That's that's coming up on the 13th. That'll be our first episode next week. You and I wanted to make sure that we talked about this. It's obviously very rare for us to get like an actual written letter in the mail.
Oh, this was incredible, yeah.
But we got a note from a Real Talker by the name of Karen, and she actually requested our mailing address a while ago. This was in December, and so we passed it along after doing an extensive background check, Karen. I'm just kidding. And this arrives yesterday in our mailbox, and this is like a handwritten card. How cool is this? Somebody takes the time to write a handwritten card, and we wanted to read this. I don't know if she intended to have it read. She threw a check in, by the way, as well, which is really incredible. But she says, Ryan, Johnny, and the Real Talk team, she says, I hope that you're having a wonderful Christmas break with your families and friends. She popped this in the mail on the 23rd of December. To know that you were even thinking of us, Karen, while you and your family were getting ready to celebrate the holidays is just amazing. She says, I'm sending you this check. She sent us a check for $100, which is absolutely incredible, Karen. Yeah. And we're going to send something back to you, by the way. She says, but I'm sending you this check. She says, it may be small in the grand scheme of things. It's not, Karen. She says, but it's a symbol of my commitment of supporting your show. She says, since I'm not a super chat person, she says, Lord knows I can't even figure out how to participate in the YouTube chat. She says, knowing that this is an alternative to the super chat is appreciated. Karen says, your show is part of my day. I have missed a grand total of 2 episodes.
Wow.
Since you started. John, what are we at? We're at like 804. We're at
I think we're at 885.
885?
Today, yeah.
So she's missed 2. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how unbelievable is that? She says, since you began podcasting, I appreciate the information I receive from perspectives I may not otherwise have the opportunity to hear. She says, I'm wishing you all the best in 2025 and continued success. That from Real Talker Karen. We just wanted to read that and let you know that it honestly blew us away yesterday when we opened the envelope together. We read it together, and we said that like this just needs to be read on the show. And so we just wanted to let you know, Karen, how much that means to us and to everybody that we know. Like, honestly, man, I mean, I'm like obsessed with consuming media. I have my favorite podcasts. I watch my newscasts, just like you do. You probably have your own Real Talkers, kind of the list of the blogs and the Substacks that you read, but then also you have real life. Like you have like kids that need you, or maybe you're looking after your parents, or maybe you have a full-time, maybe you're an entrepreneur. I want to give a shout out to So Pretty Cara Cotter and Pura Botanicals, 2 Edmonton businesses that experienced a B&E and a robbery just the other day. I'm thinking of them. I'm thinking of all the small business owners. You have so much that's pulling on you, and so much that is demanding your time. And when you make Real Talk part of your routine, whether it's like Karen, where you've virtually never missed an episode, or even if you download Real Talk on the big days, right? We see huge bumps in the podcast. When the Prime Minister resigns, or when the American election results are in, or when a natural disaster strikes, when the town of Jasper is burning. Our thoughts are, with the people in California right now. That type of a thing. Knowing that Real Talk is part of your go-to, honestly, it kind of fuels our desire to keep doing this and keep bringing you excellence each and every single day. So Karen and everybody else that's in there, I mean, we see familiar names in these live chats. We refer to you lovingly as our regulars, and it really means a lot to us.
Doing the romper room. I see Randy. I see Ken.
What a reference.
See Chris.
What a pull.
I see Vamp Fashions.
Should we start?
Hey, I know our audience. I see the analytics.
Yeah,
they all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you do.
But man, when we opened that yesterday, it was just amazing. And it brought me back because, like, I wouldn't want to date myself, but I'm old enough to remember when you pull out a nice fresh piece of paper and write a nice handwritten note and then send a check. It was way better than getting an email or an e-transfer. It really means a lot when someone sits down at a desk and pulls out a pen, writes it, licks it, puts the stamp on, thank God it got here, thank you Canada Post, and puts it in a mailbox and it ends up here. It just meant a lot. And also, thank you, Karen, for flipping the narrative and the stereotype on the name Karen.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Karen's getting a bad rap.
One of my best friends in the world is named Karen, and she has a beautiful rant on all of this. I love it.
We love Karens.
Yeah, we do, and this really means a lot. You're right about this. I mean, look at the handwriting. It's like impeccable, as my grandma used to call it, penmanship.
Well, that's what I meant. You could tell she didn't like write it in the car or whatever. She sat down at a desk. She took her time. She thought it out.
Do you think if you were to sit down, do you think that you were going to write a card? Could you have it? You know what mine starts? Mine starts my printing. I do block printing, and it looks like, architects always have like the most fabulous printing. Mine starts looking as an architect, if I was writing you and it would say, Dear Johnny, and it would look really great. And then by the end, it kind of starts to like angle off and get sloppy.
Yeah.
I wonder if today's kids will be able to write cards and letters like Karen was able to.
I was just going to weigh in on that. So here's research from Johnny. I used to have incredible penmanship, like in high school and about 5 or 6 years after, all the way up to about 2010 when we started just, not writing as much. And now I'm the type of guy, I went to write the Christmas card to my partner this year, and I had to do it 3 times. So I went back and got 2 different cards because I screwed it up. I scribbled. It didn't look great. You want a Christmas card. People sometimes save them, you know what I mean? So I think I don't know the exact stats. I'm sure there is some sort of research, and I'm not quoting any research right now. But I agree with you that I think maybe penmanship may be in decline.
Yeah. Now I'm wondering if we're allowed to say penmanship anymore.
You know what I mean? Penpersonship?
Penpersonship? I don't know.
I'll move on.
I saw, we want to leave room for flex. We weren't planning on talking about Meta again today, but I did see a comment in the live chat. This is why you got to participate in the live chat. Powered by Park Power. I saw somebody in here, I apologize, I don't remember who it was, earlier in the show, wondering if we were going to touch on Meta and its new hate speech guidelines. I think what was making headlines, in particular, what has made headlines this week, number one, when Mark Zuckerberg announced that, Facebook and Instagram, essentially, that Meta was going to eschew fact-checking. It was going to get rid of fact-checking. It says it's going to go to more of like the X model that Elon Musk has, which is the community notes, where other users can add context, which is also kind of the Wikipedia model, like Wikipedia with the open edits, and it allows people to kind of fact-check those Wikipedia posts. We talked about it with Professor Tim Caulfield earlier this week, and I encourage you to check out that episode. He's got great insights on Meta getting rid of its fact-checking. But in particular, what's made headlines over the past couple of days is that the new, and I'll reference NBC reporting here, the new hate speech guidelines permit users to say that LGBTQ people are mentally ill. This is one of the changes to the hate speech guidelines among a broader policy shift that Meta has made to its moderation practices. And so as Matt Levietis reports, Meta will allow billions of social media users to accuse people. I would wager a guess that billions of users will not be doing this. But one of the implications is that you'll be able to accuse people in your comments of being mentally ill based on sexuality or gender identity. And so the new guidelines prohibit insults about somebody's intellect or their mental illness on Facebook, Instagram, or Threads, unless it's accusing LGBTQ people of being mentally ill because they're gay or transgender. And if you reference the revised company guidelines, I'll read from it. Quote, "We do allow allegations of mental illness or abnormality when based on gender or sexual orientation, given political and religious discourse about transgenderism and homosexuality and common non-serious usage of words like weird."
So I see what he's trying to do here. He's trying to say that you can call anyone mentally ill, but you can't say someone is mentally ill because they're a certain race or because they love a certain type of people. But it's still, it's
no, it's the other way around.
What do you mean?
It's the other way around.
No, you just said that they can do it unless they're...
No, you cannot, right? You cannot accuse, you can, the company's new guidelines prohibit insults about somebody's intellect or mental illness.
Yeah.
Unless there's a caveat. There's like an asterisk. Unless you're accusing LGBTQ people of being mentally ill because they're gay or transgender.
Oh, well, that's horrible. Then.
It's the flip side.
I thought there was a caveat. That,
no, it's the flip side.
I thought they were saying you can call anyone mentally ill no matter who they are now, but not because of, Well,
no, so
horrible.
this isn't like a misunderstanding or an oversight, right? Like this is it's a deliberate choice to prioritize so-called free speech over what I think is like it's like decency and truth. And so the bigger picture here, I mean, this is the same Meta, the same company. It's one of the biggest companies. It's one of the most valuable companies in the world, one of the biggest companies, easily one of the most influential companies in the world, right? And it's just rolled back its fact-checking, in particular on political advertising. And so, in other words, you can now basically I mean, if, this might seem cynical, but it's factual. You can openly lie. You can spread dangerous misinformation. You can target vulnerable communities. And they'll just basically sit back and collect their ad revenue. That's kind of Meta's position on it. So they'll call it neutrality. But if we're being honest, this is about profit over people, plain and simple. And so we're talking about, LGBTQ, and I'm thinking of younger people. I mean, obviously, you could talk about people aged, toddler all the way up to those, 99 years old. But they're already navigating bullying and discrimination, and in worst case scenarios, violence, right? Now they're going to log on to Instagram and Facebook and see people that are spewing hateful garbage, sanctioned by the platform, right? Like, I know that a lot of people, you'll get like a comment on your social media, maybe some of you more than others, and you go to report it because it's like horrific. And there's nothing worse than hearing back that, the algorithm, these aren't even real people, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, we, to take you behind the curtain a little bit, like we'll get horrendous death threats, and we'll report them for obvious reasons. And then you hear back from Instagram that says it's not a violation of our community standard. It's not a violation of our policies. So imagine this on a personal level, and especially if you're just an individual. You're just somebody minding your own business. You're not somebody out there hurting anybody else. You're not throwing yourself out there for public dissection, right? So where's the accountability here? That's my question. Meta loves to brag about connecting the world, but this sort of strikes me more as enabling bigotry. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. That's my response to this. Like, if you want to know my personal thoughts on this, anti-LGBTQ rhetoric is escalating globally. We've got lawmakers that are targeting trans rights here at home and around the world. Hate crimes are on the rise. That's a fact. And Meta is throwing fuel on the fire, quite frankly, as opposed to doing the opposite. So, I made a comment about Holocaust denial in politicians earlier today. Like, that's already been allowed for years, right? You don't have to say what's next. Holocaust, that's already been happening, right? Now they're lowering the standards from there. And so I think, quite frankly, when it comes to what do we do about this, everybody's going to have their own personal perspective on this. This is a gut check moment. And so ultimately the question is, do you keep feeding the beast with your clicks and your shares and, most importantly, your advertising dollars? If you own a business, if you advertise on Meta, and I know a lot of you do, whether you're realtors, restaurateurs, whatever it is, and you've probably seen good return on that investment, right? Or do you demand better now from tech overlords who I think are proving time and time again that maybe they don't deserve to be trusted with the power that they have? That's my takeaway from this. And it seems to me like Meta's making a move based on profit here that ultimately could have really, really tragic outcomes for a lot of people. And it's one that I can't reconcile. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that's horrible. And I'll reference our show with Tim again. This is just, as he notes, like, perception of reality is just, we're getting farther and farther away from it. We're living online. And now from Zuckerberg, this is just pandering to what's happening online, which is these voices that are very large, which is giving you the perception that everyone thinks this way, and they don't. And, I know this has nothing to do with that, but, there's some space, there's exploration going on in space right now. We have some astronauts who were supposed to come back to Earth from the International Space Station, and they're stuck up there. I'm sure you've seen this story. And so the other day they post like a video or something, and they put it out everywhere, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. And they're just saying, hey, we're okay. They've been sending us supplies, but to get us back in this time, it costs $70 million. So we're going to wait. They're coming back in spring, I think in March. And the comments underneath are just like, nice studio in Hollywood, and space doesn't exist. And I'm scrolling down, and 90 to 95% of the comments are comments like this. And when you see stuff like that, and when you see it every day, your perception of reality just changes, and you begin to believe things that aren't facts. But yeah, this is pretty disgusting stuff. Now that I understand exactly what you said. Sorry, a lot of things going on under here. I missed what you said, but it's ridiculous.
This is, I think, part of the role that we can play is like, and this is like, we're off script here. Well, whatever. We never have a script for the show, but you know what I mean? This wasn't in our lineup today to touch on this story. We had touched on it with Professor Caulfield earlier this week, as mentioned, on the 7th of January. If you want to check out that episode, it was a really, really good show. And sometimes this is probably a good chance just to get into the weeds a little bit and talk to you about our YouTube channel. We have our audience, obviously, that finds us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and now arguably by the numbers, our biggest audience now is on X. A lot of you are watching us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and you're going to see the full episodes. But on our YouTube channel, on our homepage, let me show it to you here. One of the reasons why we want to direct you there and encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel is because Johnny also puts together highlights and shorts. So, Johnny, I'm showing it on the screen right now, but you got the full episodes that you can always find. But here's a really good example of why you're going to want to check out the YouTube channel, is because that Caulfield interview, as an example, on the 7th of January, the episode is titled Trudeau Resigns and Here's What's Next. And that's because we had an excellent roundtable of experts that joined us. And, we had an NDP staffer, Sharon Carr was on there as well, and Tasha Carradine. And so, that's kind of the theme of the episode, but it doesn't even show you that Tim Caulfield's on the show. If you scroll down, you can see our shorts, and then you can see our highlights as well. And on the highlights, these are really easy for you to share. You can also find cut down interviews. Some of our highlights are like, Shannon Phillips, a former Alberta cabinet minister, talking about why she thinks, and this is a former NDP cabinet minister talking about why she thinks that Jagmeet Singh and the NDP is in real trouble. That's 52 seconds. That's a nice, easy highlight to share. But then you have a half-hour interview with Tim Caulfield right here that you can share, and it doesn't come with everything else. It doesn't come with the political commentary. It doesn't come with the openers, and a lot of times they're ad-free as well. So you can find our highlights and, of course, the flamethrowers as well. Look at that, 10,000 views of our flamethrower last week. Canada isn't the 51st anything. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Johnny and I are, really, really, we've got a bottle of bubbly in the fridge waiting for when we hit 20,000 subscribers. Maybe that could be next week.
It could be,
But we thank everybody that subscribes to us and subscribes to the show on YouTube. We've got a Real Talk roundtable coming up on tomorrow's episode.
Nice.
That'll be the 13th of the 10th of January. Where am I going with this? The 10th of January. Then the 13th of January, Charles Adler will be back. And a reminder as we wrap today, Real Talkers, that registration is open for the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic. Brian, we got your note that you're going to be joining us, volunteering your services, and that means so much to us. We can always use folks at the registration table. We can always use folks that are helping us keep wood on the fires, and trust me, the atmosphere there is absolutely fantastic. Johnny's going to be there spinning tunes. We got DQ there handling the burgers. Our presenting sponsor, Molson Canadian, they've got the beers cold and ready for you, all of it on the 1st of February. Have a great day.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Kandola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.